A little girl with golden hair walks through JFK Airport, clutching a teddy bear, until a canine suddenly lunges, clawing at it. Hidden beneath the fur, a coil of microfilament explosives. What seems like a routine day spirals into a high-stakes race involving a disgraced agent, a murdered engineer, and a system already infected from within. Every move hides another layer, and the truth is far more dangerous than anyone suspects. If gripping stories grounded in real-world tension are your thing, make sure to like and subscribe. You won't want to miss what unravels next. At Terminal C of the JFK International Airport, the morning buzz hummed with the usual blend of coffee-fueled business travelers, restless vacationers, and the rolling echo of suitcase wheels across polished floors. It was a day like any other, until it wasn't. A little girl no older than 6, with unbrushed blonde curls and denim overalls one strap undone, clutched a raggedy brown teddy bear in her arms. Her grip on it was tight, not with the playfulness of a child, but with the anxious, unconscious need for safety. She stood in line at the security checkpoint beside a tall woman, presumably her mother, dressed in beige slacks, sunglasses too large for indoors, and a silk scarf that seemed to hide more than protect. Agent Doyle had been with TSA for 11 years, long enough to know that it wasn't always the shifty eyes or the suspicious passports. Sometimes it was the silence. The little girl didn't speak, not even when her mother adjusted her collar. She didn't smile, didn't squirm, she just clutched the bear, its one button eye glinting under the overhead lights. 3 lines over, Officer Ramirez held the leash of K9 Jet, a Belgian Malinois with sharp ears and a sharper nose. Jet had served in Iraq before being assigned to domestic counter-terror operations. He was steady, unflinching, the kind of dog who only barked when something was truly wrong. As the girl's trays slid along the conveyor belt, her bear still tucked under her arm, Jet suddenly pulled hard. The leash jolted. "Whoa, Jet, here!" His eyes locked on the bear. His front paws clawed at the metal rail, trying to climb over it. "Ramirez," Doyle snapped, his voice a mixture of confusion and command. "What's going on?" "Something's wrong with that bear," Ramirez said tightly, trying to restrain Jet. "He's never reacted like this." Doyle looked over to the mother, who had now stepped forward, her hand protectively on her daughter's shoulder. "It's just a toy," she said in a clipped, almost tired voice. "She's afraid to let go of it. Can we please just pass?" "I'm sorry, ma'am, we need to inspect the item." The little girl looked up at the agent, her eyes wide but not teary. Not confused, just a Holloway. That struck Doyle oddly. Most children cry or protest when separated from their favorite toys. This one just stood there. Ramirez called for backup. "Code yellow at checkpoint C, possible alert on a personal item. K9 reactive requesting explosives technician." A second TSA officer, Bennett, approached. "What's the issue?" "Dog's going crazy over that bear. We need to scan it separately." The mother's voice became sharper, a warning under her polished tone. "This is ridiculous. She's 6. It's a stuffed animal." Doyle held up a hand. "We're just doing our job. Step aside, ma'am." He knelt and extended his hand gently. "Sweetheart, may I see your teddy?" The girl hesitated. Her lip trembled, just for a second. Then she looked at her mother, who gave a single, tiny nod. The girl released her grip. Doyle took the bear carefully, its threadbare limbs swinging with a lifeless softness. Jet stopped barking the second the bear left the child's hands, but his body remained stiff, tail rigid, nose twitching with laser focus. They placed the toy into the scanner. Doyle watched the screen with narrowed eyes. Layers of polyester, cotton stuffing, and then something else. Thin, wiry lines running beneath the surface. Not wires exactly, more like strands, fine, metallic, and bundled in a spiral. "Is that?" Bennett whispered.
"Run it again. Isolate the density layers." The machine confirmed it. Foreign elements disguised within the bear's seams, possibly filamented material, unknown composition. "Explosives team is 5 minutes out," someone said behind them. Doyle turned to Ramirez, keeping his voice low. "You ever seen Jet like that?" Ramirez shook his head. "Never. Not even when we found that pipe bomb in Houston. This is different. He's not just alerting, he's agitated, like it's alive. Could be nanothread, or something new. Maybe a shaped filament? I don't like this." The The mother was now on her phone, pretending to text. Her fingers moved too fast. Her shoulders stiffened when the dog growled again. Bennett, detain the mother. Politely. Bring the girl to secondary screening. Don't spook her. Jet circled back around, staring at the bear through the glass, quiet now. But his posture said enough. This wasn't a false alarm. And this wasn't just a child with a toy. 30 seconds later, the mother tried to run. She didn't get far. Jet barked. One sharp burst, and the hall fell into tense silence. Agents surrounded the area, and travelers watched as the woman was cuffed, her sunglasses falling to reveal darting, furious eyes. The little girl sat quietly in a side chair, hands in her lap. No tears, no panic, only silence. And outside, across the glass wall near Gate 17, a man in a gray hoodie dropped his coffee and casually walked away. Too casually. Back inside, Doyle leaned over the bomb tech's shoulder. What are we looking at? The tech's face had gone pale. This isn't amateur. That bear was prepped to trigger off movement, heat, or signal. Possibly all three, but more than that. Look at this. He rotated the image. Hidden inside the bear's chest, nearly flush with the fabric, was a micro-trigger. And beneath it, threaded filaments, tightly coiled, almost invisible. Cyber explosive, the tech muttered. Military grade, could flatten a terminal. Doyle looked over at the child. She was the courier, he said, and she didn't even know.
Agent Doyle leaned over the security desk in Terminal C, his jaw tight as he reviewed the incident report. Behind him, the little girl sat in a blue plastic chair, legs dangling above the floor, quietly swinging back and forth. She hadn't asked for her teddy bear once since the bomb squad had taken it away. That unsettled him more than anything else. Most kids would cry, scream, beg to hold their comfort object. This one simply watched, observed. Ramirez returned with a soft breath and handed Doyle a preliminary scan from the incident response team. It's definitely military grade, she murmured. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. The casing inside the bear wasn't just homemade, it was precision hedged. Almost impossible to detect. She didn't act like she knew, Doyle said, but something still doesn't feel right. No child that age just gets handed a bomb. He stepped into the interview room, where a female DHS psychologist was kneeling beside the girl with a juice box in her hand. Sweetheart, can you tell us where you got the bear? The girl blinked. At the airport, she said softly. A man gave it to me. He said it was for me. Did you know him? She shook her head. But he was nice. Where did you see him? Near the big silver doors, where the suitcases go in. That caught Doyle's attention. She's talking about the baggage drop, he told Ramirez, stepping back into the hallway. Pull footage from every angle outside the Delta Airlines bag check area. Last 2 hours. Narrow it down to adults within 5 feet of a minor. They found him 15 minutes later. A grainy figure in a dark hoodie, tan baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses wrapping most of his face. He stood near the entrance, back partially turned to the camera, and waited. Not impatiently, not nervously, just waited. The girl and her mother arrived with 2 large suitcases. While the mother handled check-in, the man crouched beside the girl. His hand reached into a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. A moment later, he handed her the bear. The moment passed quickly, 6 seconds at most. Then he stood, adjusted his hat, and walked off. They zoomed in frame by frame, but the angle of the hat and the quality of the lens gave no clear ID. He's good, Ramirez muttered. A clean face shot, no logos, no fingerprints left on the bear either. We already checked. Doyle paced slowly. He knew the layout, that camera's placement leaves a dead spot between angles. He moved right through it. Watch his walk, Ramirez added. That stride's military or at least tactical. You see how he angles his weight forward? Custom sole, she confirmed. Maybe XCOT's OOPS or mercenary. Any security tags at entry, Doyle asked. No one matching his height and frame shows up at the main door between 6:30 and 7:15. He had to come through staff entrance or underground. They scanned badge logs. Nothing unusual, but a minor breach had been reported an hour earlier near the staff parking structure. Someone had tampered with an emergency stairwell latch. Could be him, Ramirez said. He gets in through the stairwell, bypasses the entry cams, hits the exact drop point by baggage check and blends out through traffic. Probably changed clothes before exit. That means we've got a trained operator who accessed a major US airport with military-grade explosives, used a child as a courier, and vanished within minutes. Doyle scrubbed a hand down his face. Get facial reconstruction based on body metrics. We need gait analysis, height prediction, and any overlap with known domestic or international threats. Meanwhile, the girl sat quietly under the gentle questioning of the psychologist. What did the man say to you? He said, my dad told him to give me a present. The woman's voice caught. Did he say your dad's name? He just said, Daddy said it's for me. Then he smiled. Did he give you anything else? The girl nodded. Reaching into the small pink backpack she'd worn since she entered the airport, she pulled out a folded slip of paper. Doyle unfolded it carefully. On it were 5 numbers, handwritten in block letters. 38,174. No signature. No explanation. Just numbers. Coordinate? Locker? Access code? He murmured. Ramirez leaned closer. Or a flight number? Doyle checked the departure board. Delta 3817. New York to Seattle, gate 26A. Departure in 32 minutes. He wouldn't be stupid enough to board a flight. Ramirez said, already walking, unless he's using it to move a second package. They reached the gate in under 2 minutes. Jet was already being led by another handler across the tarmac near the luggage hold. Passengers were still boarding, unaware of the quiet tension building just behind the scenes. Pull the passenger list, look for ticket purchases in the last 6 hours. Cash or gift card transactions only. Got one, an agent radioed. Purchased through kiosk using prepaid Visa card at 655 AYM. UID? No match in any national database. But we did get a footprint scan from the security checkpoint. He passed through without raising flags. He went through? Doyle's voice was sharp. That means he must have dropped the bear before clearing. Wanted to see it go through the checkpoint before boarding. Son of a... Sir, a tech caller. You need to see this. They brought up another camera angle, this time from the parking garage level 3. The same man. Hoodie gone, baseball cap switched to a navy beanie, different bag. He entered a janitor's closet and didn't come out. The next person exiting wore a maintenance jumpsuit. Face still hidden, different gait, limping. Chameleon, Doyle whispered. He has a change-out plan for every angle. Probably left another trail deliberately just to confuse us. Ramirez zoomed in on the closet door. Just before it closed, the edge of his cheek was exposed. Sharp jawline, pale skin, scar beneath the left eye. That's our first real detail, Doyle said. Send it to Facial Recon and check if any known persons with that feature have entered the US in the past 30 days. At that moment, Jet barked once. Short, alert, near gate 26A's trash bin. The bomb techs moved in. Underneath layers of discarded snack wrappers and a crumpled newspaper, they found a small cell phone. Not active. No SIM card. But attached to the back was a receiver. A match for the triggering device found inside the teddy bear. It had been placed precisely where a security sweep wouldn't check, within civilian disposal, far from cargo scans. He was watching, Ramirez said, her voice cold. Probably still is, but they were closer now, and he had left behind more than just a bomb and a lie. He'd left behind a fingerprint of strategy, of pattern, of a plan that wasn't even close to done. The air inside the TSA operations center had grown heavy, tension mounting as additional footage was reviewed and airport patrols were redirected based on the previous lead. The presence of military-grade explosives embedded in a child's toy was already cause for full-scale alert, and the discovery of a matched remote trigger near Gate 26A had only confirmed the worst. Someone was orchestrating a layered, highly intentional breach. Doyle stood near the operations board, arms crossed, listening to reports come in from different corners of the terminal. Ramirez was leaning over the second monitor bank, eyes darting between infrared signatures and gate traffic. We need to lock this place down, Doyle said. He's staging something bigger. Every move so far, controlled, calculated. The girl, the trigger, the decoy trail. It's all built to buy time. Then, it happened. At exactly 11:07 a.m., the dispatch line crackled to life. This is JFP Ops. We've just received an anonymous tip. Female voice, scrambled audio. reporting a possible explosive device in the women's restroom outside Terminal D. Time of detonation, 11:30. Doyle's face darkened. New call just came in, male voice, heavy distortion. Says there's a secondary bomb inside an unattended suitcase at baggage claim Carousel 9, Terminal B. No description. Within seconds, the command center erupted into motion. Ramirez pulled the secondary team rosters. We don't have enough units to fully sweep both zones while keeping current checkpoints secured. Doyle didn't hesitate. Split the teams, prioritize passenger safety, clear out both areas, and divert foot traffic to auxiliary terminals. But leave a minimal presence here. We can't abandon what we already know. As agents dispersed and K-9 teams were redirected to Terminals B and D, Jet was pulled from the investigation at Gate 26A and reassigned. Bennett and 2 junior officers remained at Checkpoint C with limited support. That was all the window the man needed. At 11:15 a.m., cameras inside the service corridors of Terminal A caught a brief glimpse of a maintenance worker pushing a small HVAC repair cart down a narrow utility hallway. Blue jumpsuit, ID tag that read, Wilson, HVAC Services, thick gloves, safety goggles, and a worn beige cap under the regulation hard hat. On any other day, he would have been ignored. This day, however, wasn't any other. The man passed 2 janitors and an intern from airport tech support without hesitation, even nodding slightly as he pushed the cart to the rear panel near the electrical maintenance hub, room 14C. Access was restricted. The door required both a security code and a staff badge scan. Cameras showed him standing there, motionless for 5 full seconds. Then, with fluid precision, he reached into the cart's lower tray, pulled out a small flat panel no larger than a calculator and held it near the access reader. A short pulse emitted from the device. The light above the door blinked from red to green. The bolt released. He stepped inside. Back in Terminal C, Ramirez's voice cut through the control room again. We swept the restroom at Terminal D, no suspicious devices located, no signs of tampering. False alarm, but we're still. Doyle swore under his breath. He split us on purpose. Both calls were decoys. We left the wrong terminal exposed. Inside room 14C, the man worked quickly. The space was small, filled with electrical junction panels, cooling units, and rows of circuit breakers that connected key systems across the terminal's power grid. He removed his gloves, revealing long fingers scarred with old burns. Each movement was exact, as if rehearsed a second duffel. This one darker, bulkier. Inside, a coil of insulated cable, a compact network intrusion module, and a black case containing a tool that looked too advanced for civilian use. With a screwdriver, he unlatched the main panel and exposed the control array beneath. From the black case, he pulled what appeared to be a modified industrial relay switch with embedded firmware. With quiet care, he inserted it into the live circuit. The system didn't blink, no alarms, no surge, just a silent handshake between device and host. He connected the cable from the relay into his intrusion module, which immediately came to life with a soft green glow. A laptop was next. Military casing, no brand. He powered it up, typed a string of commands, and waited as the system ran a scan. One by one, nodes on the screen turned from gray to green. Terminal C's lighting, Terminal A's HVAC flow, communication routers between control tower and gate comms. Not full control yet, but enough to monitor and possibly reroute. He wasn't detonating anything. He was preparing access. Control, not destruction. At least not yet. Back in the security center, a technician called Doyle over. "Sir, we found something odd on the HVAC system." "What kind of odd?" He was a 30-yac interference in the signal coming from utility node C, maintenance grid. "We thought it was just a sensor misread, but it matches the exact moment the power door to room 14C was opened." Doyle's heart sank. "Who has access to that room?" "Only internal electrical maintenance personnel." I checked the logs. Last official access was 2 nights ago. Pull the footage from the hallway, full sweep, every exit, every access point since 10 o'clock a.m. As they began to load the feeds, the screen flickered for half a second, barely noticeable. Then it returned to normal. The technician looked up. "That wasn't us. Rewind, now." They replayed the hallway cam from 10 minutes ago. The HVAC tech, pushing the cart, bad angle, no facial ID. But when they paused the frame just as he reached for the door, there it was again, that same scar beneath the left eye, barely visible beneath the safety goggles. "It's him," Doyle whispered. "He's back inside." Ramirez returned to the room breathless. Baggage claim sweep is complete, no device. Both calls were fakes, entire teams wasted. "He played us." Doyle nodded grimly. "Not just played us, he rerouted our units while inserting himself directly into the core infrastructure. He doesn't want chaos, not yet. He wants control of the systems, the power, the comms, hijacking the airport. Or maybe this is still just the setup." The technician beside them suddenly leaned forward. "Guys, check this out. Network packet logs from the router near room 14C. Just lit up. Someone's pinging the ATC channel filters." Ramirez's voice dropped. "You mean tower comms?" The screen flashed again, this time longer. 3 seconds of interference. Then darkness. Power to Terminal A dropped for 5 full seconds before emergency backup lighting kicked in. "Full lockdown," Doyle ordered. "Every exit, every corridor, seal it now." But they were already too late. The HVAC technician had disappeared from room 14C. Only the open panel remained. Cables still hummed. Ramirez stared at the open access panel inside room 14C, her gloved hand hovering just above the still warm casing. The hacker was gone, but his presence lingered like static in the air. Wires, no longer hidden, led from the relay switch to a covert junction module discreetly magnetized to the rear of the cabinet. Its green light was blinking now, passive, not armed, but too sophisticated to belong to any ordinary saboteur. Doyle entered the room moments later, a folded packet in hand. "They finished scanning the bear," he said flatly. "Preliminary analysis just came in." Ramirez didn't look up. "It wasn't armed?" "Not quite," Doyle replied, setting the folder on a nearby workbench. The bear was empty. The cavity inside was a decoy. The actual charge wasn't stored inside it at all. Now she looked at him. Then where was... Doyle opened the photos. Threaded around the torso lining, superfine filaments, non-metallic, nanopolymer-based, practically invisible to X-ray unless targeted directly. He tapped one image showing the inside of the backpack the girl had carried. The trigger wasn't the bear, it was the zipper pull. The filament was woven through the inner seam of the bear's arms and stitched around the backpack's backplate. The moment she unzipped it under the right conditions, it would complete the circuit. Ramirez blinked. "You're saying she was the real payload?" "Exactly. The bear was just the distraction." Doyle exhaled. "The design is surgical. Controlled detonation. The radius would have taken out at least a quarter of the terminal's west wing if it had gone off inside security. So why didn't it? Because the trigger wasn't primed. He never intended to detonate. Not yet. Then what the hell is his endgame?" Doyle leaned in, his voice lower. "You want to hear the crazy part? The explosive compound? It's military grade but registered to a black butt supplier based out of Nevada. Only one agency has clearance to distribute it. JSOC. Ramirez's expression tightened. "Special Operations Command?" "Yup, and guess who pops up in our backtrace when we run the facial metrics on SCAR? Matthew Keene. Former deep cover asset for DIA. Went dark 5 years ago after a botched op in Jordan. Listed KIA in a sealed report signed off by the Pentagon. You're telling me our terrorist is a ghost from our own government?" "More than that," Doyle said, pulling up a satellite-captured image on his tablet. "Check this. 2 weeks ago, a JSOC team ran a simulation drill here, JFK. They never coordinated with TSA or local homeland offices. No formal paperwork, just came in under diplomatic clearance. Ran an internal comms test, and vanished. That's not protocol exactly. Now fast forward to today. Keene infiltrates the airport, fakes 2 bomb threats, hacks our electrical grid and plants a non-lethal charge on a 6-year-old. But here's the thing. He had multiple chances to detonate, and he didn't." Ramirez paced the cramped utility room, boots scraping against the concrete. "He's not trying to blow the place up. He's trying to get caught." "Why?" Doyle tapped the photo of the backpack again. "Because he wants us to find all of it. The setup, the connection, the pattern." She turned toward the control panel. "Then this device, he left it for us to trace," Doyle said. "It's not meant to shut the airport down, it's meant to monitor. He's watching who moves where, who responds to what. He's testing our systems, yes, but also feeding us information. A breadcrumb trail. Davis's radio crackled. Command, this is Davis. We've secured the child and reaction to the mother. Go ahead. Ramirez replied. The woman finally cracked under pressure. She's not the girl's biological mother. Custodial papers are forgeries. The child was taken from a shelter in Prague 4 months ago, smuggled into the U.S. through diplomatic channels under a Czech attaché's credentials. The woman's a former contract linguist, last active in Jordan. Doyle stiffened. Jordan, we opened the girl's backpack again. We found a microdrive sewn into the lining, heavily encrypted. They're rushing it to cyber now. Kian planted it? Looks that way. Probably the entire reason she was ever here. Back in the security center, technicians worked feverishly to decrypt the data. Lines of code streamed across monitors. Then a single file opened. A video. Grains of a handheld recording began to play. A dusty compound, heat distortion rippling through the frame. Voices shouting in Arabic. Keen's voice, undeniably him, was speaking to an unidentified target off-screen. There was gunfire, then silence. A subtitle overlay read, Asset compromised. Request abort. Civilian presence confirmed. Another voice, American, responded, garbled but audible. Negative. Objective remains. Proceed. Then an explosion, muffled screams, and the screen went black. Ramirez felt the chill in her spine. That's an op being denied in real time. And this, Doyle said, gesturing to the device Keen left behind, is... He's not blowing up JFK, Ramirez said slowly. He's exposing the people who tried to bury him alive. And he's doing it in the most public way possible. Through us. Through the very systems he used to belong to. Doyle rubbed his temples. They'll bury this the second it hits internal servers. They'll wipe the trail. That's why he used the girl. Not as a weapon, as a courier. She's the messenger. A junior agent rushed in. We just got a hit. Keen was spotted near the sky bridge between Terminal A and the control tower. Doyle didn't wait. Move every unit, lock down the corridor. If he's exposing something, we need to know what and why now. But as they reached the corridor, it was already empty. A door at the end of the sky bridge had been forced open. Wires bypassed in the same signature method used at Room 14. Security footage showed Keen stepping through the frame, expression unreadable, carrying a gray case. And behind him, just for a second, another figure, a woman, face obscured, her silhouette familiar. Doyle froze the image. It's her, he said quietly. Ramirez turned. Who? The one from the Prague shelter breach. The real handler. The one who took the girl. The identity of the girl had remained elusive until now. With the forged adoption records unraveled and the fabricated name dismissed, DHS scrambled to locate any existing familial connection using biometric data pulled from the child's medical records, now cross-referenced through Interpol and local registries. The girl's true name was Lena Hartley, age 6, U.S. citizen, next of kin. Charles Hartley, a systems engineer assigned to JFK Airport's Critical Infrastructure Assessment Division, on contract through a private defense subcontractor, Gravitech Solutions. Doyle stared at the file, a tight knot forming in his stomach. Hartley, he muttered. Why does that name sound familiar? Ramirez had the answer before he finished the question. He's the guy who died last week. Car accident, according to the report. Off-site, no toxicology, no internal review. Case was sealed in under 24 hours. Gravitech claimed he fell asleep at the wheel. Doyle flipped through the pages. But this says he filed a report just 2 days before his death, flagging systemic irregularities in the power relay and surveillance control grid at JFK. The same grid Keen just accessed. Ramirez narrowed her eyes. So Hartley finds something, flags it, and within 48 hours he's dead. Then suddenly his daughter, who should be in state custody or with extended family, disappears, only to reappear a week later smuggling a bear laced with explosive material back into the very place her father worked. That's not a coincidence, Doyle said. That's a message. From Keen? Or from Hartley posthumously? Ramirez tilted her head. You think Hartley suspected something might happen to him and somehow arranged for Keen to pick up the trail? Doyle shrugged. Or Keen was already investigating. Maybe Hartley reached out to him, a whistleblower to a disgraced agent. Someone outside the chain of command. Someone with reason to listen. They returned to the little girl. now under protective custody in a private wing of the airport's security zone. She was sitting with a female liaison, playing silently with a plastic dinosaur, and looking every bit as removed from the chaos as she had been since the beginning. Doyle sat down across from her. "Lena, I need to ask you something important. This bear, where did it come from? Did someone give it to you before you came to the airport?" The girl nodded slowly. "It came in a box, for my birthday." "Who sent it?" "It said from Uncle Tom." She shook her head. "Daddy said I didn't, but the lady told me it was from a friend of his." "Which lady?" "The one I stayed with. She said he forgot to send it before, and now it finally came." Doyle leaned back, brow furrowing. "This lady, was she the same woman who brought you to the airport?" Another nod. "Did you see where the box came from?" "It didn't have stamps," Lena added, almost absently. "The box was plain like the ones in Daddy's closet for tools." Ramirez checked the evidence log of shipping labels, USPS tracking or third-party couriers matching that delivery. That bear was never mailed. It was hand-delivered, no barcode, no scan, no trace. Doyle stood and pulled the child's file again. Hartley worked on core energy failsafes, backup comms, and Tier 3 override protocols for all JFK electrical systems. That gave him oversight into every security and surveillance node across terminals A through D. If he saw manipulation, rerouting, or data anomalies, he would have been in a position to prove it. Unless someone deleted the audit logs, Ramirez added. Exactly. But if he knew what was coming, he might have hidden backups. Maybe even used his own daughter to smuggle evidence out before it could be destroyed. "Which brings us back to the bear," she said slowly. "And to Keene. He could have intercepted the delivery, swapped the lining, or augmented the payload without altering the bear's external structure. All while planting the real information somewhere inside." Ramirez's radio pinged again. "Cyber just decrypted part of the microdrive. It's not just video. It's code. Schematics. File hashes pointing to embedded devices within the airport's own infrastructure." "Proof of infiltration?" Doyle asked. "Yes. And a list of modified firmware keys. Somebody's been altering system behavior from the inside for months. This wasn't just sabotage, it was preparation." Doyle paced, piecing it together. So Hartley discovers the breach, logs it, and tries to report. No one listens, or worse, they silence him. He knows time is short, so he sends his daughter into hiding. Keene, somehow aware of the larger picture, retrieves Lena, hides the proof in the most unsuspecting way, then reintroduces her into the scene with just enough noise to trigger investigation, Ramirez added. "And every step of the way he does just enough to stay ahead of us but not vanish. He wants to be found, he wants to lead us," Doyle confirmed. "But not to himself, to whoever buried this from the beginning." He tapped the photo of Hartley again. "Maybe, just maybe, Keene wasn't operating alone. There's someone else. That woman on the sky bridge, the one who left with him, she was involved in Prague. The handler. She might have been Hartley's contact before Keene ever entered the picture. Or someone from inside Gravitech," Ramirez suggested. "Covering their own tracks? Or defecting," Doyle said. "Trying to expose this before it escalates." They paused as a courier approached with a sealed package retrieved from security. It had been found in the staff lounge, tucked behind a vending machine near a terminal breaker box. The tag on it simply read, LEA, in block letters. Inside was a second stuffed animal, another bear, this one with both eyes intact. Tucked into the seam was a memory chip. No explosive, no wires, just data. The timestamp embedded in the chip's encryption header was exactly 1 week prior, Hartley's date of death. Inside the briefing room, the fluorescent lights hummed quietly as Doyle placed 2 mugshots side by side on the table. The one on the left was clearly Matthew Keene, hair cropped close, eyes sunken but sharp, that signature scar beneath the left eye. The photo on the right, older and less defined, was Charles Hartley during his early years in government service. The resemblance wasn't just cosmetic. The proximity between the 2 records told a deeper story, one the team had almost missed. Ramirez stood behind him, arms folded, processing the connection. "They worked together?" she asked. Doyle nodded slowly. "Not just worked, they served on the same task force." "Which one?" "Defense Intelligence Overseas Infrastructure Operations Division, Jordan Sector." classified missions, one joint project analyzing vulnerabilities in Middle Eastern logistics hubs. They were both cleared at level 6. Ramirez blinked. So Keene wasn't just some shadow asset gone rogue, he was Hartley's partner. And according to this, Doyle said, tapping an internal memorandum from 2019, Keene was dishonorably discharged under Section 402 breach of confidentiality. He leaked internal findings related to contractor collusion with foreign surveillance firms. It wasn't treason, it was whistleblowing, but the agency buried him, and Hartley stayed, Ramirez said slowly, until now. Until he found something similar, maybe even worse, and realized what happened to Keene could happen to him or his family. Doyle looked back at the video feed showing Lena in protective custody, still unaware of the weight her name now carried. So Keene comes back, not to get revenge, but to finish what they started. Or to keep Hartley's daughter alive long enough to expose it. Meanwhile, in the K-9 wing of the airport's internal security, Officer Ramirez Sr., no relation, was reviewing Jet's deployment log. Jet had been reassigned from overseas duty only 14 months ago. His file was thin but flagged with a Level 1 classified overlay, which required override clearance to access. With some pressure and a little help from a Homeland liaison, Doyle managed to pull the redacted part. What he found stopped him cold. Jet's last international deployment had been in northern Iraq, embedded with Joint Task Force 73. His final recorded mission involved an intercepted convoy believed to be smuggling a new type of precision-fed explosive compound. The report stated Jet had positively alerted on a device hidden within textiles containing polymer-wrapped detonation strands, the same configuration now recovered from Lena's backpack. Jet's not just good, Doyle murmured. He's experienced in this exact kind of bomb. And the decision to transfer him here, Ramirez asked, was expedited after Hartley flagged his internal anomaly report. Someone at DoD signed off on moving Jet to JFK as part of a test deployment. You think Hartley requested him? Or Keene did, through back channels, as insurance? Elsewhere, the team analyzing the original memory chip found a new directory buried beneath layers of encrypted junk data. The folder, simply titled Key Loop, contained personnel files, meeting transcripts, and heavily redacted audio files. One stood out, labeled Offsite Briefing 3/12. The first was Hartley. The second unmistakably belonged to Keene. Hartley, they reactivated the dormant comms grid, not for emergencies, for redirection. Internal surveillance is being spoofed. Keene, they're going to create an incident, force a shutdown, then privatize the response under their own subsidiary. Hartley, you need to protect Lena. If anything happens, Keene, I'll get her out. But once I do, you'd better be damn sure someone on the inside still remembers who we are. Ramirez turned to Doyle. They knew it would escalate. They knew it would become this. Doyle nodded grimly. And every move Keene made, every layer, wasn't about terror. It was about truth. He's not dismantling the airport. He's unraveling a cover-up. Just then, Jet barked sharply from the adjoining room, alert posture rigid, eyes fixed on a janitor's cart left too close to the secondary HVAC intake. The handler pulled Jet back, but the dog resisted. A sweep was ordered. Beneath the false bottom of the cart's cleaning bin, technicians found another payload. Identical polymer strands, dormant, precisely coiled. No trigger, no receiver. Just the message, "We're watching." Jet sat back on command, but his ears perked. He was sensing something more. A new feed came in from the control tower's private hallway. Infrared showed residual heat. Someone had passed through minutes earlier, too light to be Keene. Possibly the woman. Doyle looked up. They're not done, Ramirez whispered. We've only seen half the map. While the focus of the security and DHS teams remained fixed on tracking Keene and decrypting the data chip, the flow of operations across the airport resumed with a cautious rhythm. The terminals buzzed again with announcements and background chatter, the kind that barely masked the heightened alertness running just beneath the surface. In a corner of Terminal E, far from the chaos at Terminal C, 3 men wearing reflective vests and rolling a heavy crate on a wheeled pallet made their way toward the restricted freight gate. The crate was plain, unmarked except for a faded sticker reading, "Mechanical Supplies." Fragile. The man in front, tall and broad-shouldered with a radio clipped to his vest, flashed a laminated badge to the warehouse staffer manning the checkpoint. "A rush repair for cooling unit 6, he said curtly. "Signed for last night, needs to get through now or the backup compressor goes down." The staffer gave a quick glance at the manifest on his terminal. "I don't have any scheduled repair today. It's off record," the second man added, handing over a work order slip with a stamp that looked legit enough to pass. The badge scanner beeped red. "Badge not recognized," the staffer said. "You guys new?" "Yeah," the third man replied. "Transferred in from Newark yesterday. They haven't updated our clearances yet." He forced a laugh. Typical bureaucracy. The staffer frowned, checking the code printed on the back of the badge. G74Xs. He entered it into the internal clearance system. Access denied. The system flagged the ID string as revoked, not just recently, but specifically deactivated 48 hours ago by a red-level override. The override tag, C. Hartley. The staffer stiffened. He didn't say a word, but slowly reached under the desk and triggered the silent security alert while pretending to refresh the manifest screen. The three men shifted slightly. The leader leaned in. "Is there a problem?" "No, just a slow system," the staffer replied, heart-pounding. New interface. Within 90 seconds, a plainclothes tactical response unit was already en route. They surrounded the cargo dock from 3 access angles. The men sensed it. The tallest one grabbed the crate's side panel and kicked the wheel lock. "We're moving it manually," he said sharply, but the staffer stood up. "You'll need supervisor approval for that." The tension snapped. The first man shoved the staffer back, and the crate barreled toward the gate. But before they could reach the exit sensor, 2 agents stepped in from the side, weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them." The trio bolted. One ran through the side hallway toward the fuel corridor, the second up the emergency stairwell, and the third ducked behind the equipment lockers. Within moments, 2 were subdued with non-lethal force. The third nearly reached the tarmac before being tackled by a K9 handler. The crate was immediately secured and brought to a containment bay. Bomb technicians moved in cautiously, but what they found inside wasn't explosives. Instead, it was a pressure-sealed server rack, 2 blade units with external ports, and a proprietary BIOS interface. A single Ethernet cable jutted from the back, sliced clean as if disconnected in a rush. Doyle arrived on scene 5 minutes later, briefed on the breach. "What were they trying to install?" he asked the technicians scanning the servers. "Not install," the tech replied. "Extract." He pointed to the drive modules. "These are data harvesters. Passive scanners designed to piggyback on internal network nodes. Looks like they were scraping metadata." Ramirez arrived with a report in hand. They used revoked access badges from Hartley's old clearance group. But here's the twist. The override code wasn't leaked. It was secured in Hartley's private folder and flagged just before his death. That means he knew those credentials were being copied, and he manually shut them down before anyone else could act. Doyle's voice was steady. "So this was a separate team. While Keen distracts us in the terminals, these guys hit the cargo bay and try to pull down server data, possibly to cover the trail of whatever Keen's exposing. Or to frame him for something worse," Ramirez added. "Think about it, what if this whole move is meant to paint him as the ringleader of a coordinated domestic breach?" "But he's not working with them," Doyle said. "He warned us. He led us to the child, to the bear, to the compromised hardware. These guys never engaged with any of it." Ramirez flipped her notes. "And the timing? Perfectly synchronized. As soon as we diverted manpower to monitor Terminal C, they moved in on the blind side. That's not improvisation, that's a playbook." Meanwhile, Jet, still alert from his earlier detection, was being walked through the cargo area as a precaution. Without warning, he broke from the leash and sprinted toward a stack of freight lockers. He began barking furiously at one near the rear wall. Officers opened it carefully. Inside, among old uniforms and tools, was a discarded contractor jumpsuit, a wig and a hat matching the description of the woman last seen with Keen. "Either she ditched the disguise," one officer said, "or someone else used it to copy her path." Ramirez watched the evidence being bagged. Someone's trying to move in Keen's shadow. Same hallways, same signatures. But they don't leave breadcrumbs, they delete them. Doyle looked at the recovered server rack. Then what we're seeing isn't a breach, it's a race. one side trying to expose, the other trying to bury. And in the middle of it all, a child, a bomb, a dead engineer, and a K9 that had smelled this type of war before. In the secure forensics lab inside Terminal C, the remains of Lena's teddy bear lay spread across a stainless steel tray. Each fiber, seam, and internal component had been cataloged, imaged, and scanned through both electromagnetic and microfrequency resonance filters. It was the technician assigned to microcircuitry who noticed it first, a faintly shielded module no larger than a pea, embedded deep inside the left ear. The chip had been molded to resemble part of the stuffing bead, covered in a fine layer of silicone mesh to avoid triggering touch or weight-based sensors. It hadn't been picked up in the initial sweep, not because it was hidden, but because it wasn't transmitting. Doyle leaned in, staring at the scan. "It's not GPS?" The technician shook his head. "This chip doesn't broadcast, it listens. Very specific frequency range, narrow band, analog short range. Think more like a detonator than a tracker." "You're saying it's a receiver?" "Exactly. Tuned to react only when it detects a specific frequency spike, a burst code most likely. And once it hears that code, it would complete a microcircuit, activate a switch." Ramirez, standing nearby, exhaled sharply. Then the entire package, bear, backpack, the filament, was passive until that signal reached it. It could have passed right through security, lay dormant, and no one would have known. Doyle nodded. "And if Lena had walked through that signal? We wouldn't be standing here right now." Elsewhere in the terminal, Agent Harris reviewed security footage with an AI-enhanced face recognition filter. They were cross-referencing all known diplomatic contractors and linguists with recent flight irregularities. It didn't take long for the system to ping a match. Alina Markovic, 43, dual citizenship US and Serbia. Previously employed by the US State Department as a senior interpreter, stationed at the embassy in Ankara. Security clearance level 3. Last known employment, private consultancy in Washington, D.C. She had booked a seat on flight 1149 to San Diego. Boarding scheduled for 10:40 a.m., but never boarded. Her luggage, however, the baggage handler logged her checked suitcase into the cargo manifest at 10:02 a.m., and it passed through TSA screening with no alerts. When questioned, the gate agent recalled that Markovic approached the desk at 10:18, looking flustered. She said she forgot her wallet, left it in her rideshare, and asked to delay boarding. Seemed annoyed, not panicked. When she returned, the gate had already closed. Doyle reviewed the footage. Markovic stood near gate 22, tapping on her phone, checking the monitor. She made no effort to alert security or rush the gate. Then, without fanfare, she turned and exited through the main terminal, disappearing into foot traffic. They located the suitcase in the airline's internal storage, tagged unclaimed. TSA reopened it under direct supervision. Inside, nested beneath neatly folded blouses and travel toiletries, was a communications module. Non-lethal, no explosive material, but the frequency burst transmitter inside was precisely tuned. Its output signature matched the receiver embedded in Lena's teddy bear. "She was the trigger," Ramirez said. Eyes hard. "She didn't need to be on the plane. She just needed the bag to be close enough to transmit." "Timing was everything," Doyle muttered. "If Lena had boarded that same flight, passed the transmitter at the right moment, boom. But she didn't," Ramirez added, "because Keene pulled her back." "What about the flight?" "It was rerouted due to tarmac congestion. Departure was delayed by 20 minutes. Lena was never meant to walk past gate 22 again." "Then why deploy the trigger at all?" "Maybe it wasn't meant to go off yet," she said slowly. "Maybe it was a dry run, or a way to confirm the circuit still worked. A signal test." Doyle stared at the open suitcase. Maybe someone else was supposed to be holding the bear, not Lena. But the plan changed. In the cyber room, a new piece of decrypted data appeared from the memory chip Hartley had hidden. Among the files was an internal memo between unnamed contractors, redacted to the bone, except for one time-stamped note: "Confirm relay sync via diplomatic courier. Active path through Delta 1149 channel. Signal integrity must remain subsonic, max 23 dB spike. Use asset red. Bind." Doyle read. That was their codtail to them. She was a or a failsafe, Ramirez said. What if the real plan wasn't to detonate anything, but to demonstrate capability, to show they could? Doyle clenched his jaw, which makes Markovich not just a pawn. She knew. She planted the signal. She left the airport on foot. She knew we wouldn't stop the bag in time. And she's still out there, Ramirez whispered. An alert came through on the DHS feed. Facial recognition software had picked up Markovich boarding a private shuttle in Long Island 20 minutes ago. Destination unknown. Pull that feed, Doyle said. Check the license plate, payment method, anything. Meanwhile, Jet remained stationed near Terminal C's mechanical wing. For reasons not yet clear, he remained fixated on a single maintenance panel along the wall, one that, according to blueprints, wasn't tied to any major system. It had no ventilation, no wire junctions, but when technicians opened it, they found a secondary burst transmitter, older, battery-powered, likely planted days before. That one wasn't in the suitcase, the tech said. It's independent. Doyle turned. Then Lena's bear was never waiting for one signal. It was waiting for two. The interview room was stark, lit by a single overhead fixture casting long shadows across the table. Matthew Keene sat still, his wrists cuffed to a steel ring in the table's surface, the scar under his left eye catching the light just slightly. His expression was unreadable as Doyle stepped into the room with a tablet in one hand and a yellow envelope in the other. The arrest had not been violent. Keene hadn't run. In fact, he had waited, standing calmly at the emergency access corridor behind Terminal A, holding his hands in the open, repeating only one phrase. It's already inside. Now, seated opposite the lead agent, Keene pushed forward a folded slip of paper he had kept hidden inside the lining of his jacket. Doyle unfolded it slowly, expecting codes, names, coordinates. What he saw instead was a string of what looked like random alphanumerics. L3, DF79182 Brevo 5Z. But next to it, in small block writing, were the words, Control Layer Access Terminal Sync Route. Doyle's heart sank. He recognized the prefix L3DF7 was a root-level ID, used internally for system-wide diagnostics. Accessing it required privileged clearance, normally reserved for DI cybersecurity engineers or top-tier aviation network personnel. It wasn't something that belonged in the hands of a ghost like Keene. Where did you get this? Doyle asked quietly. It doesn't matter, Keene replied. What matters is that someone has already used simultaneously in the cybersecurity operations room across the compound. Ramirez had deployed a specialist team to run a deep audit of the airport's digital control layers, particularly those tied to HVAC, lighting, terminal guidance, and internal communications. When they entered the command string Keene provided, a hidden subsessive activated, one not visible on surface logs. It initiated a cascade of response, like lifting a tarp to reveal a nest of tangled cables. The terminal's electronics flinched. Brief surges in hallway lighting, camera feeds flickering, automated announcements skipping half a sentence. Within 2 minutes, the system identified a root-level intrusion pathway embedded directly into the airport's logic controllers. But it was there, and it had been there for days. "The year discovered the timestamp on the injection," Ramirez asked. The lead tech responded without looking up. 3 days ago, June 1st, mid-morning Eastern Standard. Doyle checked his notes. That's the exact day Lena and the woman posing as her mother landed in New York, on a direct flight from Sofia, Bulgaria. Bulgaria? Interpol flagged it last month. Series of malware attacks on EU airport infrastructure, traced back to state asylum cyber groups. Ongoing investigation. Ramirez pulled surveillance logs. We're going to need the footage from their customs arrival. Every moment. From gate to exit. Keene spoke again, voice level. They didn't bring malware on a USB or some drive. They were the delivery system. Passive transmission. The mother's phone possibly implanted pre-flight, or a Bluetooth sync during connection in Frankfurt. The moment they crossed JFK's private Wi-Fi signal, payload transferred. Doyle leaned forward. You're saying the airport infected itself by letting them walk through the doors? Keene corrected. Someone made sure they got through. The malware was pre-programmed to stay dormant unless a second signal confirmed its environment. And that signal came from inside. Your infrastructure's already compromised. Ramirez watched in disbelief as the audit team's logs updated. It's not just monitoring, this malware has conditional control branches. It can trigger gate locks, reset clearance levels, spoof access logs, even loop camera feed. It's a breach, Doyle muttered. Worse than we thought. One technician called out from across the room. Found another embedded string. It's echoing commands from a remote server, but that server doesn't have an IP. Darknet access node? Ramirez guessed. No, the tech replied. It's local, it's here. Somewhere inside the airport. Ramirez spun around. That server's physically inside JFK? Correct. Probably running on an isolated blade or hot-wired to a dummy terminal. Could be in a janitor's closet for all we know. Doyle returned to the interview room, holding his tablet up to Keen. Where is it? Keen didn't speak. Instead, he leaned back and said, Your dog knows. Doyle stared. Jet, the signal used to ping the malware's confirmation node has a subtle acoustic bleed. Hiya humans, canines, especially ones who've worked bomb sweeps in Iraq. Back in Terminal C, Jet was already on patrol. The handler had noticed the dog's unusual attention towards several innocuous wall panels. None of them tested positive for explosives, but Jet wouldn't move away. He barked softly, low and repetitive, then sat. Doyle arrived moments later, followed by Ramirez. Same panels, she asked. Yeah, the handler replied. He doesn't like what's behind but mounted behind it, tucked into the wall cavity, was a compact, ventless device no bigger than a lunchbox. It ran silent. No fans, no obvious interface, but a thin fiber cable led out of it, vanishing behind conduit. They brought in portable EMI gear. When they powered it up, the signal spike lit the screen. That's our node, the tech confirmed. It's the malware's control relay. Keen was right, Ramirez whispered. They built a ghost computer inside our walls. Doyle looked back toward the holding cell, and someone let it happen. The internal relay node discovered behind the HVAC panel had been disconnected. Its fiber cable severed under controlled conditions by the DHS cyber team. Within minutes, the signal bleed across the airport system dropped to null. The malware instance quarantined and isolated into a secure sandbox. Surveillance returned to normal. Security logs stabilized, and backup servers confirmed that no data had been exfiltrated past the test triggers. For the first time in hours, JFK Airport's control infrastructure began to breathe again. The lights stopped flickering, gates resumed scanning, terminal announcements came through in full, and the growing sense of dread slowly began to uncoil from the shoulders of every agent and officer involved. In the temporary holding cell, Keen sat still, no longer shackled, eyes calm. Doyle entered with Ramirez and a copy of the internal memo that had just been decrypted from Hartley's hidden files. You knew it wasn't over, Doyle said. That there was someone else. Keen nodded once. The engineer in charge of systems implementation. He was always the only one with end-to-end visibility. Everyone else just had pieces. His name? You already have it, Keen said. But you're looking at the wrong version of him. An hour later, a SWAT unit moved in on the secure floor of the operations annex, where the airport's chief systems engineer, Thomas Blaine, had been overseeing cleanup coordination. When they confronted him, he didn't resist, but he didn't speak either. In his office, behind a false wall panel, they found the missing hard drives from Hartley's diagnostic station. Drives that had been flagged missing but never investigated. On those drives, source code, access logs, and signed correspondence between Blaine and a foreign contractor known for backdoor firmware development. In exchange for routing internal data and modifying core systems to allow long-term remote access, Blade had received untraceable cryptocurrency deposits across 16 shell accounts. Hartley had discovered the anomalies during routine auditing but never realized how deep the breach ran. When he tried to escalate the findings, Blade activated the cleanup protocol, first by feeding disinformation, then by eliminating Hartley in what looked like a staged accident. Keen's role had always been different. He had received an anonymous package months prior, inside Hartley's last encrypted message, a partial schematic and the directive, protect Lena, don't trust anyone inside. From that point on, Keen moved covertly, watching, tracking movements and using his skills to build a path that would force exposure from the inside. He never needed to plant a bomb. He just needed the system to reveal its own cracks when the pressure became too much. Outside the command center, Doyle stepped into the family room. where Lena was seated beside Jet, her fingers tangled gently in the canine's fur. She looked up quietly as he entered. "Hi," she said simply. Doyle smiled. "Hi, Lena, you did really great today." She nodded, then leaned closer, voice soft. "Can I tell you something my daddy told me?" Doyle crouched to her level. "Of course." She leaned in, whispering. "He said if someone gives me a thing with red string, I should never open it. He said that's how I'll know it's not a gift, it's a trick." Doyle blinked slowly. "Red string?" She nodded again. "Like the zipper. The one on the bag. It had red thread." Doyle stood up, every piece finally snapping into place. Hartley had known from the beginning that his daughter might be used, and he had taught her in the simplest language possible how to recognize a threat. That tiny memory, barely a whisper, had saved her life, and possibly hundreds more. In the press conference that followed the lockdown, Homeland Security stated that a potential domestic breach had been fully neutralized and that there was no threat to public safety. They did not name Blaine, nor mention Hartley. Keene was not formally charged. His file remained sealed, but he disappeared quietly into federal custody, his future left deliberately vague. What they did confirm, however, was that a young girl had unknowingly carried a piece of a very dangerous puzzle, and that her bravery, and that of those who followed the clues, had stopped something far worse. Jet was awarded a commendation for exceptional service. Lena was there, holding his collar as the ribbon was placed, and in a small envelope left anonymously at the foot of her chair was a note, printed in careful block letters. "He never stopped protecting you. You were always the reason he kept going." If this story kept you on edge, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. What part shocked you the most? Was it the red thread, the second signal, or the truth about the engineer? And by the way, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to know.